What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I wanted to talk to you about Plato's Allegory of the Cave. This is an allegory that you've probably heard about. It comes from Plato's work called The Republic. And I highly recommend that you go read or listen to The Republic for yourself. There are some brilliant audiobook versions of The Republic, but I have to warn you, it is a fairly long read, and some of you may find it difficult at first to understand what you're reading. But have no fear, okay? It was difficult for me to understand as well, but the more you read, the more you go back to it, the more sense it will begin to make to you. The easier it will be for you to understand what is being said, you see? So anyway, let's get right into it. And I have to tell you also, I'm going to be giving you sort of my own version of it, adding a little to spice it up a little bit for your entertainment, you know what I mean? But this is the allegory of the cave. Imagine that there is this cave that acts like a tunnel of transport between two cities. And constantly, every day, city dwellers are traveling through this cave, carrying various goods, transporting them to the next city over to sell them at market. Some of them are carrying things like fancy vases, or however you say this, and statues of different animals and people and things. They're carrying them on their heads. Some people are pushing carts and all of this. There is a certain part of the tunnel that has a raised walkway or a raised platform. And the walls of the cave are lined with fire, torches, you could say, right? There are torches along the wall. This is the source of light in the cave. Now, on the floor of the cave, there are prisoners that are being held here, and they've been in captivity since their young days. This is like the second generation of prisoners. They have been here their entire life, and each one of them is chained to a metal rod by their neck and head. They are unable to turn their head side to side, but they can look with their eyeballs like this. But they are forced to face forward and look at the wall of the cave in front of them. And what they see on the cave wall are shadows. Shadows being cast by the various shapes that the city dwellers are carrying on their heads to the next city over to sell. So they're seeing things like elephants being carried and jaguars being carried and things like this. But all they're really seeing is the shadows of these things. And this is all that they've ever known. And so they believe that the shadows are the real deal. They believe that all of the sounds that they're hearing are coming from the shadows on the wall. And if they developed a word for the elephant shadow, maybe they would call it an elephant. But they believe that an elephant is the two-dimensional, actual size shadow on the wall. They have no idea about what we would call a real elephant. They don't know what that is. Never seen one. They don't know what the color gray is. They don't know what tusks are or what a trunk is. They know nothing of big ears that flap. They know nothing of the real sound that an elephant makes. They believe that an elephant is the shadow on the wall. You see? Now, there is one special prisoner there. And he's special because he questions his reality. While everyone else, while all the other prisoners are content in their world, right? They have begun to make up stories and everything, myths and things like this, stemming from their belief in the shadows. So this elephant, they have a story of where the elephant's going and what it's going to do and all of this. But this certain individual has this feeling, this intuition. He feels it deep in his bones that there has to be more to life than this. He's being called somewhere else, something else. He just knows something. Doesn't know what he knows, but he knows something. And so he begins to mess with the chains, and eventually he gets them off. They fall off him, and he's free. And so he begins his mad dash for the exit. Now, have you ever been in a dark room, like when you're sleeping and somebody comes in and they open the blinds and your eyes hurt because of the sunlight? Imagine that times 1,000. And that's what this individual experiences when he begins to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Extreme pain in his eyes. He is blinded. Remember, his whole life, he has never been exposed to sunlight. So he is blinded. It's painful. It feels like his whole body is hurting and he can't see. So he begins to stumble and fall. And now he's feeling his way around because he can't see. He gets frightened. His adrenaline kicks in. So what he does in fear, he turns around and hightails it back to his fellow prisoners and puts himself right back in the chains. Okay? But somebody saw what was going on. Somebody was there watching and witnessed this prisoner realize that he was a prisoner when the rest of them couldn't realize it. Okay? Now, when he gets back and he puts himself in the chains, he tells the other prisoner, he said, listen, it's dangerous out there. Nothing but pain and death. Do not, for the love of God, do not leave this place of safety. Now, like I said, somebody witnesses this all happen, and they become very curious, and they say, you know what? Let me go take him out of this cave. Right? They're curious because he was able to realize and know that there was something else besides the cave. So they choose him. Now, they come to him in the middle of the night, a night of the new moon. There is no moon visible in the sky, so there is less light. And he rubs salve over the prisoner's eyes to protect him even further, puts a blanket on him, undoes the chains, and begins to take the prisoner out. But the prisoner throws a fit. He fights against it, clawing, biting, punching, kicking, like a child throwing a temper tantrum. He's screaming. He just knows that he's taken to be killed. This is the end for him. And because of this, imagine the trauma that this puts the other prisoners through, right? When they see this happening, everything that's happening to this individual, they become afraid and they know that wherever he's going, he's not coming back. He's a goner, you know? So they snatch this prisoner out of the cave and they bring him out into the night sky with the salve on his eyes, and they begin to calm him down and say, listen, nothing bad is going to happen to you. I will protect you. I've got you. But he still can't see anything because of the salve, right? Everything is very, very blurry. And so they begin the process of integrating this prisoner into the upper world, all right? And they take precautions. They only bring him out at night. They do this for a full month. They do it with the phases of the moon. So every night, this individual is being subjected to just a little bit more light than the night before to get him used to it, right? And eventually, he can go out on the night of the full moon and he can look up and see the moon in all of its greatness. And they begin to explain to him what it is, how it has its light, and all of this. And he's astounded. He's amazed. He cannot believe what he's seeing. And they have to explain everything to him. What grass is, what trees are, all of this. You see? Everything. What bugs are, what birds are, everything. He's never seen any of this. Eventually, they get him to the point where he can go outside in the daytime at noon, and he can even look up directly at the sun for a second and see it shining in all of its glory. And it blinds him momentarily again, right? And they begin to explain to him what the sun is, that the sun supplies all life on earth with everything that it needs to live. And also the sun is the source of this light that allows you to see the world. And then they explain to him the shadows that are being cast on the ground and the shadows that were being cast on the cave wall. And they show him the sculpture of the elephant and say, listen, this is what was casting the shadow on the wall. So while you believed in the shadow, this is what was truly causing that shape. He says, wow, so this is an elephant. And they say, no, this is not an elephant. This is a sculpture. And they have to explain this to him. They have to tell him, no, an elephant is something different, but he doesn't understand. So they have to go get an elephant, bring it to him, and allow him to see it. And his mind is blown to see this giant three-dimensional creature with gray skin and stubby hairs and tusks of ivory and a trunk and big flapping ears, and the way that it screams, the noise that it makes. His mind is blown to bits. Could you imagine? And they tell him, this is an elephant. And he understands. He begins to put two and two together. And then they have to show him how to interact with people in the upper world, right? And all of this. So they are guiding him in the ways of the upper world, you could say, right? And they get him to a point where he understands it all, where he's good to go. And they tell him, they say, okay, this is it. You're free. And he's like, you mean I'm free? He didn't know he wasn't free this whole time. He still wasn't free. Even when he was in the upper world, he still wasn't free. But they tell him, they say, okay, you're free. You can do whatever you want to do. What do you want to do? He thinks, he says, well, I want to show all of this to my family that's still in the cave. And they say, okay, go for it. I mean, that's what we did to you, so go for it. So he makes his way back to the cave. Now understand that when he goes back into the cave, he is at a higher level of awareness of the world than the people in the cave. Okay? He understands a lot more than they do. See, because what they understand, they only understand the shadow on the wall and nothing else. But this person now understands the shadow on the wall and the belief that that generates in the minds of his fellow prisoners, because he once was in that position and he knows what it's like to believe in the shadows. So he knows that, but now he also understands what is causing the shadow to happen, the entire process of the shadow being cast. And he understands the sculpture. And he even understands a level beyond the sculpture to the elephant, the real life elephant. And then he even understands a level beyond that because he understands the sun and life. And so he has all of this at his disposal to go and tell the other prisoners. And so he comes down there, but you have to realize this, that by this time he looks different, he dresses different, he smells different. And so he presents himself to them and he says, listen, it's me. And they say, no, it's not. He's dead. He died. There's no way you can be him. You don't look like him. You don't walk like him. You don't talk like him. You don't smell like him. You're not him. You're a liar. And he says, no, wait. I'm trying to tell you. It's good out there. They say, no, we know it's dangerous. It's deadly. He says, okay, well, let me tell you, let me explain to you the shadow. See, look, it's a sculpture. What a sculpture is, it's this thing made out of stone or wood, and they don't even know what this is. They can't comprehend it. They say, you sound crazy. There's no way what you're saying is true or possible. They refuse. And he understands that it was he who freed himself. He was the one who made this possible, true, sure. He was guided to making his discoveries by some unseen force working in the background. But essentially, it was himself who had the realization, who had the knowing that there was more to life than just this. You see? And so it's up to each one of these prisoners individually. They must come to the same realization. And maybe he planted a seed or whatever, but now he has a choice to make. He can shed his fancy clothes and this new being of light that he has become. He can abandon that and remain with his family of prisoners in the cave for the rest of his life, knowing that there is more out there, or he will have to abandon them and live his life primarily in the upper world. Maybe he will return every now and then to minister to them, to continue to try, to bring them food, to bring them different proofs of the upper world, to educate them. But they probably will never shed their chains. And this essentially is the allegory of the cave. It means many different things for many different people. For me, as you know, I like to frame things from the perspective of a spiritual awakening. And this is how it happens for many of us. Many of us, we come to this realization, we have this knowing that there is something more to life, that this can't be it. There must be a different way. There must be a better way to live life. And at this moment, we realize that we are prisoners. We magically begin to see the chains that hold us in captivity. And as soon as we realize it, they fall off. And you don't have to stay there anymore. And you will begin your ascent to the upper world, but fear will drive you back many, many times. And you will tell people what you've seen, the scary things that you've seen in the world, and tell them, it's bad. But that's only because you haven't made the entire journey, right? Then you make the entire journey and you see the beauty of things. And what a gift it is. And you want to give this gift to maybe your family, some of your loved ones, your friends. And you try to tell them, and no matter how you frame it, freedom, happiness, bliss, joy, attainment, enlightenment, truth. They'll call you crazy. They'll tell you it's not a possibility. And you'll have to also accept the fact that the cave is comfortable. And you have a decision to make now. It's a hard decision. Many, many people will not choose to live in the upper world. All right? There's a saying, they say, many are calling, few are chosen. Chosen, like our prisoner in the story, that fully transition to the world of light, the upper world. Many people are called. In fact, everyone might be called to experience this. But not everyone will be chosen. In order to be chosen, you must choose yourself. You must choose. You don't have to be the one to do it. You just have to be the one to do it. So you hear a lot of people calling themselves the chosen ones, a lot of people calling their following, their subscribers, the chosen ones. Some of them may be chosen. Many of them may be called. But few are truly chosen. You see? Anyway, until next time, I hope you continue to free your mind.